It says welcome to the Ethereum Meetup. I just bumped into Paul.
Hey, how's
A
it
bit
going?
early.
So thank you for having us. And, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Paul Schmitzer.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. From Particl.
All right. Okay. Well, again, Dan, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me talk. My name's Paul Schmitzer again. We just did the intros, but just a little background on myself. I got into Bitcoin back in 2011, so a long time ago, and just really, what got me into it was Wired magazine did an article on Bitcoin, and it was right after the Silk Road thing where the price went up, skyrocketed to $30 and dropped to like $1. And the article was called "The Rise and Fall of Bitcoin," so which was funny, but it was a really good article, and it really explained the technology and stuff. So that kind of got me into the space, and from there, you know, I was just got into projects that just made a lot of sense to me. So I was, you know, got into Litecoin really early, right when it was starting, and was part of the community there. And probably back in 2013, 2014 or so, really started to focus on privacy projects. So my background is not in tech or anything like that. I'm a registered architect, so I do healthcare architecture. It's what I've done for about 20 years. And but this became a hobby, you know, obviously like a lot of you guys in 2011 for me, and just obviously wasn't able to shake it and just got really involved in it, where actually this past year was able to, one of the projects I was real active with was Shadow Cash, which was an early project back in maybe 2014, I think is when it started. It was a privacy project I invested in, and it was around when Monero was coming out too. So there was, you know, that project and Darkcoin and Shadow Cash. Those were all projects I was in the community with, and Shadow Cash actually caught my eye just with the development team and what they were doing. So last year, this project actually pivoted. Shadow pivoted into Particl. Do you guys, everybody know about Particl or familiar or not really? Sort of half and half? Okay, that's usually. So Particl, let me show you guys. I guess just a one-sentence explanation of what we do. We're a decentralized platform with a native suite of tools to enhance and protect your online privacy. So we're, you know, what we're trying to do is build, you know, have a decentralized network that's all based on privacy. So every decision we do, every thing we create is kind of based on the privacy aspect of it. So it makes it about 10 times harder. I mean, it's just, you know, really difficult when you put that level of privacy on top of it. So, you know, when we started Particl, there were already privacy coins everywhere. So just to make Particl wouldn't have made a lot of sense. We wouldn't have just done it as a currency. So what we were doing is trying to create a decentralized economy is really what we're trying to do. So you have the currency side of it, but you also have the utility side. You know, how do you, so you can send and buy and sell Particl, but can you also, you know, earn it? You know, how can you use it to buy things? So that's sort of what, you know, what we're trying to do with our privacy platform. So things like decentralized apps in the future, being able to shop, communicate all in private, trade, different things like that, and then having a governance system. So all those are buzzwords that you hear in the private or in the crypto space, but it's also kind of like our core values and what we're doing. Just for people who don't know, so our ticker's part, we're actually based on Bitcoin. So this is Ethereum, you know, Meetup. But when we started Particl, Shadow Cash was built on Bitcoin, an old Bitcoin version back in 2012. And more than just a rebrand, we actually were starting, you know, if you're building a platform that's going to have apps and different things like that, you're going to want to have that built on the latest technology. So if you're going to get developers to work on it, they're not going to work on like a Frankenstein code that has a bunch of different things on it from 4 or 5 years ago. Similar, like if you're building for Windows 10, you're not, you need to build for Windows 10 versus Windows 95, which, nobody's going to build an app for that. So one of the big things we went over when we were starting this started a year ago, was were we going to build this on Ethereum? Were we going to build it on Bitcoin? We decided to build it on Bitcoin, one, just for the hard testing that had gone on that for 8 or 9 years. The development team that was good on that, and we wanted to have our own chain, so we didn't want to be built on the Ethereum blockchain. And you can see, from CryptoKitties and different things like that, there's a lot of strain that's going to be put on the chain when all these ICOs start putting out their prototypes, especially that don't have their own chain. We didn't want to have to mess with any of that. So we actually built our code on Bitcoin 14. One of our core values is security, so we stay up to date on every Bitcoin code base that comes out. Typically, it's about a 2-week to 3-week out. We're on to the latest Bitcoin code base. We're one of the only teams, if not the only. I think we're the only team on this code base. So our market cap right now today was 105. Our rank, so we're not on front page. You guys wouldn't be interested in it. But, our market cap's 149 million. We're a proof of stake coin, proof of stake consensus. Version 3, which is the latest, and I have an asterisk because I'll get into it because you guys are about the tech. We've got some cool tech that we've done, and I'll explain some of that, but using smart contracts on Bitcoin to be able to improve staking. So we'll get into what we're doing on that. We have just under $9 million part supply, and with being a proof of stake coin, you have inflation next year, and then it goes to 4% next year, 3% the following year, and 2% from year 4 on. So that's our coin supply grows by 5%. And if you stake, you're gonna your passive income is, like if you mine, your passive income's 5% or more, depending on. Go ahead.
Is there a drop-off date, or is that permanent?
This is permanent from 2 on. Yeah. We have 2-minute block times. And the privacy we're doing is confidential transactions and Ring CT. So Ring CT, if you're familiar with Monero, this is the tech that they're using. They're not built on Bitcoin. They're built on CryptoNote. I'll get into that too, but we brought confidential transactions and Ring CT onto Bitcoin's code base when we launched. So that's we've got a pretty good development team, and that's one of the things. When it was Shadow Cache, it wasn't this kind of tech either. So we had a number of things that made us rebrand to try to go a little more mainstream. The chain, the privacy technology, just the name Shadow Cache, that wasn't going to go over too well. So this is just, I won't get into this too much, but this is when we did the pivot. And we did a 1-to-1 distribution from Shadow to Part. So we didn't do an ICO. It was just a 1-to-1 swap. And the people that missed out on that actually had through the end of the year to do that swap. We have a number of advisors that you guys probably know. Some of the latter 3 guys, Micah Spruill and Joe, they were around from the beginning. John Balian and Miguel Caneta, they are based in the Philippines, and they just have a lot of pull in the blockchain space there. They're working to work remittance out. It's like a big place where remittance, they think, is going to be a big changer. And Charlie Shrem, obviously, has been around forever, is a big player in the space. So we brought all these guys on, obviously strategically. We did it in different phases too. If you had time to look at this, you'd see when some of those guys are on. But just as a startup, you want those experts that are going to be able to help you and stuff. And obviously, Miguel and John and Charlie have some major pull with exchanges and integrations and services. So some of the stuff I'll talk about with Part, what we're building, we're going to need that because we need the liquidity and that kind of stuff, those kind of integrations for some of the stuff we're doing. So But this shows what we do. We actually started a nonprofit foundation in April, and it went live right before we went live in July. That's when the Genesis block was made on our chain, and right before that, the foundation was made. So we're based in Zug, Switzerland, and then that just kind of shows some of the stuff we're doing. So like I said, our big thing is just privacy-focused, decentralized apps. A big part of that's the trustless side of things. So, when Satoshi Nakamoto started Bitcoin, it was a trustless system, a trustless currency he was introducing to everybody. If I was going to send money to Dan, he was going to send it to me. We didn't have to trust each other. We knew that the blockchain was going to make that deal happen. We knew the nodes would support it, and if not, it would kick back. But I didn't need to trust him that he would run away with my money or anything like that. It was a trustless peer-to-peer system. Some of the apps that are out there, one of the big apps that we're doing is our first major one, I think you might have seen it on the previous screen, was the marketplace. So there's some other decentralized marketplaces that are out there, but what we're trying to do it as a trustless system. So we use contracts for the escrow. We don't have a moderator system. It's a two-party trustless escrow system. And so that's a whole script. And then so that way you don't need to trust the person in that sort of scenario. There's some other decentralized marketplaces that have moderators. That's more of kind of like a centralized trust-based model like eBay or Amazon, trying to apply that to a decentralized system, which in my opinion is a little worse actually. But so again, everything's private, so it's a decentralized privacy platform. Just real quick into the trust-based models, for currency, commerce, and exchange. Like when Satoshi Nakamoto did his white paper, he talked in the very first abstract. If you guys haven't read it, it's good. The abstract, the very first paragraph or so, is all about the trust-based system models in currency and how that needs to change. And that's the whole premise of the white paper. Right in the first introduction, he actually mentions commerce too, and how there's the same system in this system too. Like if you guys shop online, there's probably 4 parties that are part of that. It's not you just buying from somebody, right? So you're buying it on some site, they take a cut of it, and there's privacy, obviously, issues with what they're collecting. And then there's also the payment processing, right? So you're using either Visa or PayPal to be able to do that. So there's 4 people in that transaction. So what we're trying, he's like, can it just be person to person, So that's what, the marketplace is kind of what our proof of concept is, what we're working on with that. So these are trust-based system. Banking, obviously, you need the bank to be able to do things. Coinbase actually holds your private keys. That's a trust-based model. Same with Tether. You have to trust that they're actually creating the right amount of tokens for what they have. Commerce, Amazon and eBay, obviously. There's some decentralized, like OpenBazaar. It's actually a trust-based model in a decentralized manner. They have moderators. If that moderator never shows up, you're kind of waiting for that transaction to happen because you have someone that's part of the deal that you hired on to take care of it, and they're never on that anymore. Fiverr's the same. Exchanges, obviously centralized versus decentralized exchanges. That's going to be a hot topic this year and next couple years as we see things kind of with hacks and different things like that. All these people have access. I mean, you're trusting all these people to protect your privacy, protect your money. So trustless models, basically, just to counteract that last slide, is decentralized, open source a lot of times. Some trustless models aren't open source. Nonprofit owned, typically like a non-for-profit, user owned. You can have lower fees if 4 people aren't involved. You obviously can sell your product for less because you don't need to hike up the fees or the price to pay for fees. There can be governance in there. So a lot of times with Amazon or eBay, there's regulation and there's censorship that's in there. Amazon's not in every country. They obviously pick the countries that they're in for various reasons. With a decentralized solution, you could be anywhere and partake in it. Again, currency, pseudo-anonymous versus anonymous. Bitcoin and Litecoin are kind of pseudo-anonymous. Anonymous, Cash and Particl, Monero, other privacy coins. And the same with commerce. There's pseudo-anonymous ones and there's anonymous. I would think like even at some point, local Bitcoins, you were saying you're on there as well, but they have some bit of your information. I haven't been on there in a while, but meet fake, there's a little bit of that that's within there. Then anonymous, BISC is BitSquare. That's a decentralized exchange. And there's actually altcoin.io is a kind of a swap. It's sort of like a shapeshift or a changely, but they're actually working on a decentralized order book. So it's different than changely and shapeshift, which actually they hold they're caretakers of the coins. So again, I had said something about decentralized economy. That's what we're trying to build. So how do you do that? We have the currency, which I'll get to in the next slide. You also need the utility. So you need to be able to earn the coin plus buy and sell it. So what we're building is a decentralized marketplace. I actually have a kind of teaser on that here. We're getting ready to put the alpha marketplace on testnet, but I've got sort of a early version of it here. So this is basically going to be it's a privacy marketplace. So you'll be able to buy and sell. Part of the core values of Particl is that it'll be crypto agnostic. So we didn't build this just for Particl. Like it wouldn't make a lot of sense just to have a decentralized marketplace just for our coin. It would drive the value up, obviously, but adoption wise, we wanted to make a use case for all coins. So the bonus of this, I guess, would be that we'd be embracing other communities like Litecoin or Ethereum or anybody that would want to use this, being able to have a decentralized swap within the platform. So if you want to, basically maybe even if it's a second dApp in there, but you could swap. You can make whatever profits you make on those swaps. You can actually come and spend it in the store. This would have communication feature. It's got a two-party escrow in there. And then this is the other thing about this is it's self-governed. So the alpha version of our marketplace doesn't have governance on it. That's why we're releasing it on the test net. Once it's on the main net, there's a governance. That would be our beta. And that will have a self-governance part of it to where we're not going to build this where, again, it's trustless, so we don't want to have the ability, our developers or anybody on the team to be able to hand-pick people to take off. All the other marketplaces, decentralized even, they can kind of kick off people and kick out listings. With this, it's all going to be user-run. So if you have Particl, you'll be able to vote on things that kind of get flagged and that kind of stuff. The part currency, that's the other part of the decentralized economy. So our part currency, getting into some of the tech stuff, I guess, of it. So we have a public side of it's like a multifaceted coin. So within the wallet, and I'll show you in there, you can either do, and most of the currency right now flowing on the blockchain is this public. So public is just part to part. So if you're sending it to an exchange or a person or anything like that, it's just like Bitcoin. So you don't know whose address you have, but you can see on the public blockchain how much is being sent. You don't know if this belongs to a certain person, but you can track that address all the way through just like you can on Bitcoin. It's like pseudo-anonymous. The transaction size is small. And the fee, for that obviously is small. That also says with SegWit, one of the reasons we did Bitcoin as well was the SegWit and Lightning Network. So all the transactions on our network have always been SegWit. We were SegWit, native SegWit when we launched. So every other project had to enable SegWit. So you have a history of non-SegWit and SegWit, Litecoin, Bitcoin, everybody. All particles transactions from the start have been SegWit transactions. And SegWit just is like another, it's like a signature, so it takes out, it's able to stack the transaction differently so that it saves in the transaction side and the speed. So you can see the next level is blinded, which is our confidential transaction. So confidential transactions, if you're not aware of it, it's been traveling around for a while, but Greg Maxwell is one of the guys he's a Bitcoin developer, and he was one of the guys that sort of developed this way of being able to proof transactions without actually knowing this amount. So confidential transaction hides the amount of your transaction. So it offers another level of privacy. The addresses are still the same. You don't know who owns them until they actually claim them. But if Alice sends to Bob, you won't know how much part. So all of a sudden knows this part is untraceable. So you can't trace this throughout the whole rest of the history. So it adds a level of privacy that Bitcoin doesn't offer. The size grows 20 times when you do that. So you can see that would affect the blockchain like massively. It's 20 times here. With SegWit, it's still a ton. So if you've heard, there's also some of the new information, and I'll get into our roadmap, but is bulletproof. So bulletproofs will actually affect this. So I'll be able to bring that size down. We have this as our setup versus all private like Monero. A big part of that is for just blockchain size. If you look at Monero's blockchain, it's gigantic. And that's because all their transactions are huge. So I don't know if they're exactly that because they're on crypto note, but and then the last side of it is our anonymous. This is only on testnet, but we've had it on testnet since July. That will use confidential transactions to hide the amounts, and it uses ring CTs to hide the addresses, or ring signatures to hide the addresses. So it's a combination. This was developed by Schmitzer in Monero's labs. So they developed the research on it and the technology. We adapted that to Bitcoin's code base. No other projects done either of these on Bitcoin's code base, at least on a mainnet level. So that's just a kind of a little brief side. So actually in the Particl wallet, you can send public part to a blinded address and you get some level of privacy. You can go from public to anonymous. You can go from blinded to anonymous and blinded back to public. So in reality, you could send yourself public. You could go from public to anonymous and on a chain that has a ton of transactions, send it right after that from here back to there, and you can't trace the coins. So it's kind of like a mixer within your own wallet. And that's a 2-minute block time, so you don't have to wait forever either. On a chain that has very little transactions, you can track that. So and you can do that even on Monero's chain has a lot of transactions, and still, if you do it quick enough, you can it's traceable in a way. So.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
What's the reasoning for having the different size of fees per transaction? Are you just trying to de-incentivize the big ones?
This is all related to how much this size is right here. So be able to send that so much part per bit. So since it's such a bigger one, you have to be able to process that on the network or incentivize nodes to process it.
The miners are doing more work.
Yes, right. So that's why. This fee will be affected when bulletproofs are within there, which would affect both of these as well. All in the marketplace, all our in the testnet version we have now, all our MAD escrow is actually this. So all our MAD escrow costs more. It's a multi-sig 2-party contract, and they're blinded to help protect the privacy of the part. Ultimately, this is what's going to be on the 2-party escrow. And then again, the platform, basically, that sort of is the decentralized economy. So you'd be protocol agnostic, passive income, and a bunch of stuff. So just real quick, I kind of touched on this, but the security is one of our core values, and privacy is probably our other core value. We're on Bitcoin code base. We're actually core 1603. Typically, we'll launch, Bitcoin launches a code base. Our next core, every tick of this is a major release for Bitcoin. So, so 15 obviously was the one before, but they had a 15.1. We'll do it and we'll add a 1 way back here. So we've done a couple updates since then, but we did that within 3 weeks. And so cold staking, that's another one that that I wanted to bring up. So proof of stake, if you're not familiar with it, is everybody familiar with it or not really? Okay. So proof of work is basically miners mining blocks, solving the algorithms. Proof of stake was created by Sonny King, Purecoin, way back. It's probably 2012 maybe or something. And basically it's a lot more like a bank, where if you have enough, whatever coins are in your wallet, you can let the network borrow that, and they'll send you they'll pay you back in a premium, like an interest rate, essentially. So when I showed you that our inflation rate's 5%, that's the inflation on the. So if you stake your coins if you stake for the whole year, basically your amount of Particl would grow theoretically at 5%. So if you had 1,000, you'd have 1,050 or whatever at the end of the year.
What happens if they don't pay back?
What's that?
You say that it's a borrowing. What happens if they don't pay back?
If they which don't pay back?
Maybe I didn't understand it correctly, but you say that you can borrow the money from the wallet.
Oh, yeah. No, it pays back. So it happens automatically. So someone doesn't come in and actually borrow it. The network will lock some of your Particl for a little bit, and then it releases it. And so it always stays in your wallet. You just can't spend it.
Okay.
It never leaves your wallet.
So it's still in the wallet, but it's not usable.
Yeah, you can't actually. So if you had 1,000 and it said was staking 200 of them, you have 800 you could actually spend for that period of time, and you get the 200 back, and then you'd have a % increase on that. That's how staking typically will work. So one of the downfalls of staking is that basically the staking node constantly there's the public key hash, which is actually your key hash that's being broadcast. When you send a transaction, you send somebody your public key hash, and they come back and verify it. Well, with staking, you're constantly sending that wallet that has all your coins out to the network, your public key hash constantly that's being sent. Now that's hash, so it's protected by a secure algorithm. I think it's SHA-256 or something. But with quantum computers, the potential's there, and this is for every coin ultimately that we'll probably have to deal with in the next 5 to 10 years, is that the quantum computers could actually break down. They possibly could break down, depending on your block time and how much time that's verifying. They could break that public key hash down, and actually once you have the public key hash, you can actually work back and get the private key hash and then have access to those coins. So one of the downfalls of staking is that you're actually constantly broadcasting that to your wallet that's full of coins. For miners, you can actually have a wallet that's 0, and you're still just churning out numbers. So your coins could be on a ledger or something and not on the network. They could be offline. On every staking coin, you have to have all your coins on, or you have to have whatever coins you want to stake. It has to prove that you have those. So what Particl ended up doing, what we ended up doing was we developed cold staking, which some projects actually have cold staking, but I'll explain what ours is. So cold staking is a wallet that's online all the time that has 0 part in it, like a Raspberry or something, like a node that's just running. It has a wallet that has all your coins in it that's offline, and there's a contract between them. So it's basically a wallet, a staking node, and a contract. And what that lets us do is there's a period of time where you can do it, set it up in the desktop, but those two talk to each other, and every time it stakes, it converts those into like a stake that the wallet understands. So it's the contract between them. And once 100% of those coins are converted over, you could actually have all your coins in a ledger offline somewhere. and your online node can be unencrypted. It can be online and just constantly, and it has basically a representation of all those coins in that wallet. So all your wallet stuff is offline. It's protected, and that staking node is just constantly it's representing your amount of coins you have. So it's saying this person has these coins to be able to reap the reward, but you're not in danger of losing all of that. So that actually it's like one of the safer ways to stake. So that's something we added on to proof of stake, and it actually was something that came into play when Meltdown and Spectre came out. That was like something that affected a lot of coins. It didn't really affect Particl at all, or the ability. It didn't affect coins, but the fear was that it would affect coins. But with our online, since your offline wallet had all your coins in it, really you weren't at danger of losing any of your coins through that because of that contract. So go ahead.
That seems very similar to the Dash masternode system. Is that the same technology, or is there something different behind there?
It is, but the masternodes are online all the time. Is that right?
It's the same deal. So you got a local wallet that enables a remote, always online.
To recognize that, yeah.
So I just
yeah, and there's, I think, Black Coin or something like that. So the big difference with us is that we actually took one of those offline, so it doesn't have to be online. And I'm pretty sure I thought on Dash both had to be online, but maybe I'm wrong.
You have to activate it from the one, and then you can go offline after that, I think.
With the one that okay, gotcha. That's good now. Okay, so then just real quick, so that's kind of a cool thing that we're doing. Privacy-wise, we use ring signatures to protect the sender's privacy, stealth addresses to protect the receiver's privacy, confidential transactions, they break the traceability of the amounts, and ring CT breaks the traceability and linkability. So stealth addresses was another thing. The Shadow Cache team, I wasn't part of the team, but they brought that onto Bitcoin back in the day a long time ago. That's what a lot of coins are using. So like Verge uses Shadow Cache's stealth addresses. That was a new thing they brought in, and some other coins that use that from this development team. Again, currency agnostic. With SegWit, we're able to do atomic swaps. So we've teamed with Decred to be able to, and a number of other groups. They have an on-chain system, swaps between 8 or 10 or 12 right now, where all of us can talk back and forth. Litecoin and Bitcoin are on there. So one of the things with the marketplace is that hopefully we'll be able to, you'll be able to use your coins. Like if you have Litecoin, you can buy stuff on Particl. It will switch to Particl to be able to run through the network and reward the stakers that are processing that transaction and to enter into the escrow. And then you'll be able to get that. So it's kind of a use case for all coins that would be able to have that. Some coins don't have atomic swaps yet. So, and then state channels is something that I was explaining. Altcoin.io is kind of working on this too. Is it allows for decentralized order matching. So you'll be able to basically, you could have 10 Bitcoins and you only want to spend one inside the marketplace. Right now, the way you do it, you'd have to have an equal number for number if you did atomic swaps. With state channels, they'll be able to parse out the amount it needs and then fill that with another one down the road. And then governance, just decentralized voting. The staking nodes, the governance on the platform are all based, the staking nodes have the final say, so that any improvement or hard fork or anything like that, like a lot of coins, the staking nodes or the mining nodes, they would have the vote for it. We're going to have a second governance inside the marketplace that's not going to be based on staking, and that's the self-governance for the beta. Then we actually have proposal systems, so we have improvement proposals and opportunity proposals and requests for proposals to be able to get more community involvement. Passive income is another perk of Particl. So 90% of the network transactions go to the active staking nodes. 10% go to Particl Foundation, just for sustained development, similar to Dash again, how the master nodes. All the marketplace fees go to the staking nodes as well. So anything that's being, basically if you're staking part any app that's going to be built on the platform, the fees from that will all go into the stakers. So there's no need for the development team or the foundation or anybody to have that. Our roadmap that we're working on, these are the last few slides. In our current 16, we have support for hardware signing, like stuff like Ledger. We're actually doing our own integration into Wallet Ledger. One of our team members, Pierre, he's friends with the Ledger guys, and their recommendation to us was that they would prefer that we did the Ledger integration ourselves, and they could peer review it and then put it in. Most teams pay an amount to be able to have Ledger does the integration, and then they get branded ledgers. So we'll probably do branded ledgers and stuff. But right now we have Particl. The part is working on our test net and regular net, but the confidential transactions and the ring CT aren't. With the newest 16, we actually redid stealth addresses and made a second version of them. There's reasons why we ended up doing that. Part of it was related to the Ledger stuff. So when Ledger does integrate us, there'll be a different type of stealth addresses for Particl. Our alpha was supposed to come out Q1, and that's now we're nearly a month past that. So we're working through that. If you follow our Twitter, we're actually giving regular updates, but we're just testing and bug fixing the last bits. We threw in escrow at the very end, so it kind of messed up our timeline. Listing governance is a planned thing. That's the beta thing that I described, the beta marketplace. Our SDK, we're planning on doing one of those so we can get other dApps built on here. ZeroMQ is a messaging system. We use SMSG for our messaging system, so that's kind of based on BitMessage a bit, but a little different. Beta marketplace is part of the plan. Full marketplace probably won't be. Full marketplace includes governance, ring CT, and a couple other things. That probably won't be out like a full 1.0 version of our marketplace till next April. But we'll have versions before there. I didn't mention this, but one of the guys in our advisor, Quan, he works for New Jersey Institute of Technologies. And he's one of the researchers and has a number of students. They're actually peer reviewing our ring CT right now. So we set up a grant last September, went through the New Jersey Institute of Technology, just going through the university. By November they got it, in December they started. So in May, next month, we should have a review of our ring CT. I don't think Monero has I don't think they ever got it peer reviewed. It gets peer reviewed, but they've never had it formally done. So we'll have that. Again, this is on our test net since last July. But ring CT, we'll get a recommendation from them and we'll fix whatever needs fixing in ours. And then we'll have a code review, just the code review. They're reviewing the whole implementation right now, not the code. We'll have a code review that'll be about a month long, and then that'll cause, ultimately that, hopefully by Q3, Particl will have a hard fork, and we'll fork and bring ring CT onto mainnet. That will be our second hard fork. We actually forked to bring cold staking onto the network too. We're looking at bulletproofs right now. That's for confidential transactions. There's the hard fork, and we actually have a number of apps. So we have a copay. If you use Bitcoin or BitPay copay, we have a Particl copay app. So we're working on getting cold staking for that. So you'd be able to use that with cold staking. We have some leftover part from our exchange that we're trying to figure out what to do. Lightning Network, obviously, with SegWit and atomic swaps. We're thinking another part of that is to bring confidential transactions or ring CT onto Lightning Network. So since we're the only project that has that, we would be the one that would have to do that. So just messing around with names for that. And then Particl Desktop's our flagship project or platform. I'll show you that. That's our wallet, and then ultimately you'll have our marketplace. Any version, anything that the community wants for that is basically going to be added as we have time. So that's a quote from Last Jedi, if you guys are Star Wars guys.
We're we're gonna do some networking time.
Sure,
We can,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna
Come
cross
back.
Paul with more questions after, but thank you. It was very informative.
I actually have
talk.
T-shirts
Oh,
too,
he's got
just a
t-shirts.
little bit.
And there's cards here. I guess these cards.
Yeah, I
here,
have
too.
some business cards. If
Lovely.
it's just like my email and number, if you guys want. But
That's awesome.
You
Alright.
guys, you guys
Hope you-
want cards?
help yourself.
Yeah.
So I tried to get Columbus.